sharp turns though. What's going on, guys? Alright, so we thought we'd do a little video here on this boat before we decide to get rid of it. Might be selling it in the future, so we won't say what we paid for it, but we've done some videos on the long-tail boats, and this one has a 35 horsepower Mudbuddy surface drive. This is the first boat I've owned that has a surface drive motor on it. The long-tails are good in different scenarios. They're a lot lighter. They're better in the, I'd say, shallower water than even this boat. I mean, this boat will get along pretty good, but the motor is so heavy. But anyway, we thought we'd do a little video kind of on a rundown of the boat and things you might want to know before trying to purchase a surface drive mud motor and a boat on a budget. So we'll give you a rundown and give you some maybe pros and cons. Alright, so first thing let's talk about is the price of surface drive motors in general and the price of a surface drive boat. So like I said, we purchased this on a budget. I would say this is probably the cheapest surface drive rig I could find on Facebook Marketplace. It's an older 35 horsepower Mudbuddy HD, which I guess is hyperdrive. I don't know if that's something to do with the transmission. I'm not super familiar with the different models, but it is an older motor. I'm not sure how many hours it had on it when we bought it. It probably had quite a few, but it ran pretty good. Only thing I've done to it is put a new carburetor and a new fuel pump. Other than that, it seems to be running great. I'm sure it's got a bazillion hours on it, and I'm sure it's been ragged on hard, but most of these motors come with a Vanguard made by Briggs & Stratton. They're really reliable motors. So as far as the motor goes, I think we've had good luck. But like I said, if you're looking to buy a surface drive motor, most of them are very expensive for what they really are. If you think about it, a lawnmower engine on a boat. The only bad thing about trying to purchase a surface drive is a lot of them are going to be on a higher price point. So definitely if you can find one for cheaper, buy it. At the end of the day, you can always buy another engine to replace the one. The thing that's cost so much, I guess, it would be the lower unit and everything for the mud motor itself. I think if the cheapest motor that Mudbuddy has on their website is maybe like, it's like 7,000 or 8,000, I think, just for the motor. So that's more than we paid for this whole setup, we'll just say that. So anyway, I think we got a pretty good deal, but like I said, you're not looking at anything on the cheap side. If you're looking at, you know, building like a cheaper mud boat, I'd say definitely go with like a long tail. That way you can buy a cheap motor from Harbor Freight and then order the kit from Swamp Runner, who we used to run a lot, and you definitely build a boat for cheaper. All right, so secondly, the next thing I want to talk about is weight distribution. So when I googled it, I think these motors weigh, the 35 horsepower Mudbuddy weighs anywhere from like 230 to 300 something pounds. It's probably somewhere in between that. It's definitely heavy. I think it was me, Mike, and Blue to try, and we couldn't even barely lift it. That joker.
We had to put a ratchet strap from
They're gonna be like, "Oh, you guys couldn't lift 300 pounds." It's at least 300 pounds. It's heavy, and there's nowhere to grab on. So it's definitely a heavy motor, and that also depends on the boat that you're running. So this hole is a 15-foot long. I think it's 48 inches wide. It was built custom by somebody. I don't think it was built by a professional by any means, but it's not a bad boat. But with this motor being so heavy, you're definitely going to need to have your weight distributed properly. So we had to make some tweaks along the way. So the battery box and everything is back here in the back, and the fuel tank was also in the back, and that plus the motor, I don't know how much that weighs, but it was way too heavy. It was definitely hard to get on plane. So I relocated the fuel tank in the front. I would definitely say if you're hunting or anything, and like I said, you know, depends on the hull that you have. Some are more buoyant than others. I would say this boat's probably not really set up to run a mud motor, but that's what they had on it when we bought it. So we had also done some, because of the weight, we had also had to reinforce the transom a little bit. We had some cracking here and there. So if you're looking at buying a mud motor, a surface drive mud motor, make sure you're putting it on a boat that's got a beefy transom that can handle the weight. Otherwise, you might run into some trouble. But like I said, back to the weight distribution. Definitely, if you're hunting out of it, I definitely have people, like in this boat, we definitely have passengers sit up front, all the decoys and stuff put towards the front because there's already so much weight and it's hard to get up on plane. These motors run good when they can get up on plane. If not, because they're surface drive and the way the prop runs in the water, you know, if you can't get that prop up where it's supposed to be in the wake, you just can't get on plane and you won't pick up any speed. So, all right, so the third point we wanted to make on this boat is the drivability of a surface drive. It is somewhere in between a regular outboard and a longtail. It's not crazy easy to drive, but it does steer a lot better than most of the longtails, unless you have like a real small setup on a small motor. We had, I think the last longtail we had was a 22 horsepower Predator, and it wasn't crazy heavy. It's definitely lighter than this motor, but it's definitely hard to, sorry with the definitely's. It was a lot more difficult to steer than this motor, but this motor's not going to be able to whip around as easily as like a regular outboard or anything like that. So you're somewhere in the middle. It's not bad to drive, but it's not making crazy sharp turns. But yeah. All right, so the next thing we'll talk about is the prop and the steering. So this is a stainless steel 1225 by 10 prop. When we purchased the boat, the prop was wore down maybe an inch or so. When they do get wore down, it makes a big difference. The engine will rev out a lot easier. It won't get up on plane as easy. So definitely when you're looking to buy a motor, definitely look at the prop and how much life it has left in it. And the stainless steel props are kind of on the higher side. It seems like everything about these motors are on the higher side. I think I paid $600 from we filmed in the walk around. Hold up, I gotta look it up now. So yeah, this prop was purchased from Backwater Performance. I think I paid $600 for it. Yeah, most of the stainless steel props for surface drives are on the higher side. I think some of them are like $1,000 and more. This has a 10 pitch, which I think is somewhere in the middle. Well, higher pitch allows for better top end speeds, and then lesser pitch is better for like low end, probably pushing a load, things like that. But when these get wore out, it definitely makes a difference with how the engine revs out and getting on plane, things like that. So that's definitely something to look for. The next thing we talk about the skeg. If you watched our other videos, I think we talked about the skeg on these longtail mud motors, and this makes a big difference. It was already bent to the right position when I purchased the boat, but we could probably do another video how to set that up and everything. But basically, your motor will push to one side. The side that it's pushing to in the wake is how you want to bend the skeg, and you can make small adjustments, but that makes a big difference on how the boat steers and everything like that. So that's another thing that's important with these. All right, so the last thing we'll talk about is the maintenance on these. You're basically dealing with a lawnmower engine. I mean, this is identical engine that would be on a lot of lawnmowers. I mean, it's a Briggs & Stratton. So oil changes, I changed the oil quite a bit in it because before we had put a carburetor on it, I had issues with the fuel getting into the oil and things like that. So I ended up putting a fuel cutoff right here. It didn't have. That helped a lot. I would definitely have that because they seem to get flooded really easily, just like a lawnmower. But yeah, other than that, it's not a ton of maintenance to do. Just make sure the carburetor's clean. I think a lot of the newer motors are fuel injected anyway. The belt, I have not opened this lower unit up and checked the belt or anything, but they say the belts can stretch out and wear, just like a lawnmower. They stretch out, wear, crack, things like that. So that's something to look for. At some point we might take this apart and change the belt or whatever if we end up keeping this boat. But yeah, as far as maintenance goes, pretty easy to maintain. This boat also had an aftermarket exhaust on it. I don't know where it came from, but it's pretty loud. I would say if you're looking to buy a surface drive mud motor, just know it's the same thing with the long tails. They're really loud, even with stock exhaust. Like I keep saying, it's basically like a lawnmower, you know, driving down the water. So even with stock exhaust, they're pretty loud, especially for duck hunting and things like that. An outboard's probably a lot better if you're looking for something quiet. But I wouldn't recommend having aftermarket exhaust. A lot of people like it, but it's just so loud, especially on the water with, you know, where there's nothing really for it to echo off of. If that's how it works. It definitely sounds louder on the water. I'd say you could hear it from a long ways away. So I definitely go with something a little bit quieter if you're looking at exhaust. All right, so one other thing that's good to know is a lot of these boats, to me, I'm always driving standing up. I mean, you can drive sitting down, but to me, they're easier. It's easier to see, especially when running in shallow water where there's logs and things like that. I definitely, if you don't have one, install a grab handle. Makes a big difference. Insert the clip of no grab handle and no kill switch. Definitely have an emergency kill switch set up with a lanyard on it. That way, you know, you're always safe because, yeah, once they're in gear, they don't stop. So, yeah, if you get thrown out or something like that and you don't want to eat a stainless steel prop. So, definitely have a kill switch. Definitely have a grab handle so you can stay inside the boat. It makes a big difference.
Plus, have you seen some of our old videos with just the long tails? We installed an Amazon golf cart handle onto the boat. Just did it between the two cross braces, just bolted on a little golf cart handle. That helped a lot with the long tails. I mean, the long tails, once you smack a log on those things, that thing's getting ripped out of your hand a lot of times.
I mean, it's the same thing with this. If you hit a hard log, it does. I mean, because of the hand, these are different. They have this handle that moves like this, so it does make a difference when you hit a log or something like that. But I mean, still, if you hit a log hard enough, it's still throwing it out of your hands. So
the long tail ones are static, so you feel a lot more in the handle than you would on this one. So.
All right, guys, thanks for checking out this video. Make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully we'll be back with more mud motor content. Let us know what you want to see.